Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Pixel Therapy. Tonight, I'm going to be interviewing a young woman named Mellissa Germain. She is a peer recovery coach that works for Catholic Social Services in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And she has a very interesting backstory, and she has very interesting answers to some of the questions that I ask her. So please kick back and enjoy the next hour of this interview, which I think went very beautifully with Mellissa Germain.
Sounds good.
Yeah, right. To begin with, just tell us who you are.
I'm Mellissa. I live in Escanaba up in the UP. Um, I don't know. What do you want me to, what do you mean? What do you
Well,
need?
like you know, that's pretty good. It's your name is Melissa and you work up in the EP. What kind of work do you do?
I'm a recovery coach. I work for Catholic Social Services.
Nice, nice, nice. How long have you been a recovery coach for?
A couple years. I've been with Catholic Social Services probably since May, and I did it for about 19 months before that, down in Huron Valley.
Okay, and I take it that you are in recovery.
Yes, sir.
How long?
I'll be 5 years in March.
Congratulations, congratulations. Did it seem like like you'd ever get that much clean time or that much time in recovery?
I wasn't, my drug thing went really fast. So I never really thought, oh my God, I could never do this or I could never get sober. I hadn't even tried at that point.
Yeah.
And then there was like a catalyst event that got me sober, and um, it was pretty pretty set in my head that I just kind of wanted to do it.
hmm And had you been around drugs all your life, or was it like a later on in life thing, or?
Yes, it was a much later on in life thing. I was adopted when I was 3, so I come from two parents who were addicts, both drugs and alcohol, and my most of my biological family is addicts of some sort. But I was raised with nothing, no alcohol, no cigarettes, no drugs. Everybody was straight laced, blue collar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so when I got into stuff as I got older, I dibbled and dabbled throughout my 20s and early 30s, and I didn't really start getting hard into drugs until my late 30s.
hmm
Um, and then I'd be like, well, these people had a horrible life, their whole life. I had a great childhood. What the hell? Why am I like this? Why am I freaking out and getting to be addicted?
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like I I understand completely where you're coming from. That I mean, and I think that is a pivotal point in everybody's recovery too. Is like it's like why? Okay, why am I like this? When it gets down to the nitty gritty, it's like, okay, why am I experiencing these things? I know that what I'm doing is wrong. At least,
Froze.
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go. You
Yeah,
froze there for a minute.
yeah. So what I was saying was that basically that's a lot that happens a lot in recovery. You see that people they ask that question is why am I doing this, why am I acting the way that I'm acting, what is it about my life that is different, and I require these drugs and alcohol in order to
Yeah, and
fill
it
it
took
either.
me a lot of years to pinpoint those traumas that actually led me into my very slow progression into drugs.
Right. Well, that kind of ties into like what the first thing I wanted to talk to you, and that's your personal journey and lived experience. And so, like what I have here on the outline, I gave you a copy of the outline too. Is like, can you share a little bit about your journey with
Yep.
substance use and recovery? Oh,
I really didn't do much of anything until I was 18. I got out of juvie the summer before I turned 18, and right away I met a guy. I smoked pot, and that's all I did for many years was smoke pot and drink here and there. I had a child young when I was 18, and because of my being abandoned and then adopted, like I wanted to be the best mother. So when my children were small, it was no drugs, no alcohol. Maybe if they go to grandma's for the night, we'll go to a party, but that was it. Um, and then I got into my mm, late 20s and I became a really bad workaholic. working several jobs, like 20 hours at a time. And then it was, hey, if you work my shift, I'll throw you some Adderall. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it started with like Adderall and stuff like that. And then painkillers. I was hit by a semi truck when I was 27.
Holy shit.
So I was really bad on painkillers for 2 years.
Hmm.
And then I quit those cold turkey one day.
Hmm.
I just got sick of taking them and didn't realize that feeling like shit for months was me detoxing. I thought I just had the flu.
Wow.
That's how ignorant and like not knowledgeable of drugs I was at that point.
Yeah, right.
And and then there was some serious trauma within our family. And I started dating someone else after that. And he brought other drugs into our life, Suboxone, meth, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And from my first hit of meth till my first day in prison, it was 19 months.
Yeah.
That's how long it took me to lose absolutely everything.
God, that happened
Two
very cool.
children, my jobs, my house, everything I owned.
Yeah, it's just like anything else in life. When you go to school or your parents, they don't teach you about taxes, and they sure as hell don't teach you about drugs. You know, especially with the opioids, that just hit everyone like a fucking ton of bricks. Excuse my language, but I mean, my mom was a victim of opioid abuse, and she didn't know what the hell it was because she was just following doctor's orders and sort of the same thing. Kind of, I see that's a trend. It's like, well, it's okay, it's a medicine, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I was buying Xandy bars at $25 a piece at one time, and they weren't even for me, like so. Yeah, and you said that there was a turning point in your life that happened, sort of like a thing that got you into recovery. But you mentioned something that's been like I've been like kind of wanting to chew on this one a little bit. You said that you went to prison.
Yes.
Do you feel like talking about that?
Yeah, I talk about prison all the time.
Hell yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Well, that was part of the catalyst. Right before I went to prison, they told me, they said, you're getting 5 years in prison,
Hmm.
which was, they were adding time because I wouldn't cooperate with them on some things.
Yeah.
At the time, the father of my two children was in prison. I was worried for his safety. I was worried for my safety when I got there. I was working with some really bad people.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm at this family court hearing, and they're like, well, you need to just sign off and do the right thing. You'll never get your kids back. You're doing 5 years, which I found out is a lie. I could have fought for them that whole time and gotten them back. So that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when the worker stood up in court and said, she's such a bad drug addict, she'll never recover. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I signed off that day on my two babies. And because she told me I was never going to recover, I was like, you're right. I need to give them a mother they deserve. I went to prison about 2 weeks later, and I was like, oh my God, if I lost my kids and lost everything in life and I come out of this and I'm not a better person, I will feel like I've lost everything for nothing.
Yeah.
Like I got nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Even though that's a weird way to put it. Yeah. So I worked really hard in prison.
Okay, we're gonna touch on that in a second here, but you were saying something about it's a weird way to put it, and it's not unusual. I'm working in the jails now. Are you working in the jails as well?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're waiting to start a program there.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, it's one of the most. If you thought being a peer recovery coach that first day is kind of weird, like being back in and then talking to somebody and not feeling like those assholes that came and talked to you is really something. So
Right.
that's why I'm hoping, like through talking with other peer recovery coaches and people like yourself, that we can develop a system, kind of like a break-in system, how to talk to people in jail, how to give hope to people surrounded by four walls, you know. Um,
Yeah.
well, where was I going with that one now? Okay, so yeah, in prison, you said something to me when we were talking before. You said that you were introduced to peer recovery coaching in prison.
I was.
All
Um,
right.
so when I got there, I was all gung ho. Like I was like 2 months sober when I got to prison. So I'm like, all right, let's do. I want to do all the classes, all the groups, all the everything. And at that point, I wanted to do it for my own self. And I got a therapist, and she was this crazy 78-year-old lady. She used to call herself an old hoe from the 70s, and she would just not bullshit you. She'd be like, "Girl, don't fucking lie to me." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and she was so real, and I connected with that. And then they hired a recovery coach, like, just for that at the prison. And I really connected with her, and she had a very similar story to mine.
Yeah,
And she's like, "You would be great at this."
yeah,
She's like, "I know you want to work with people, returning citizens, you want to work with women, so they don't lose their children." She's like, "I think this would just all work in with you." And I waited and I waited and I waited for the class, and they offered the peer support specialist class. And I was
whoa,
devastated because I wanted that recovery coach certificate.
yeah,
And they're like, she's like, "No," she's like, "Do this. That's a certification through the state." She's like, "Anybody will hire you with that." She's like, "It doesn't matter." She's like, "You can get your recovery coach thing later."
yeah,
And that's what I did. And as soon as I took the 1 week class, it was MDH, Department of Health and Human Services.
yeah, 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 yeah.
It was that class. And I got to work within the prison for 19 months, as a recovery coach. And
Hell
I
yeah.
did several groups. I did grief and loss, anxiety and depression. Grief and loss is the one I did most. I think I ran 6 groups with that one.
Okay. How did you find your materials and what some of the things that you had, like your group subjects and everything like that? Was it a lot of off the cuff shit, or was it like were people feeding you this all this stuff?
Well, we were being provided some workbook materials, but like we couldn't give the workbook to the person. We had to make photocopies of everything.
Of
So
course.
everybody would get a folder, a pen, and by the end of the thing, you had photocopies this thick.
Right.
And we had a library, so like a lot of us would find our own reading materials in the library and then suggest it to the girls. Like I had a few favorite authors that talk about codependency and stuff, and I would always suggest those to people, and sometimes we talk about that in group.
Yeah. Did you get any pushback from the other inmates for doing this? Like, you were teacher's pet, or you were just doing this to knock time
No.
off, or were they like, "Yes, sister, thank you."
Yeah, no, actually everybody I never ran with a crowd in prison. Like everybody just kind of was chill with me. I got along with everybody. I got along with guards. I got along with, and everybody kind of just respected the fact that I wanted to help people.
Right.
So like people that did drugs, they were even cool with me. They'd be like, "Hey girl, what's up?" And I'd be
Right.
like, "Yeah." And then the people that didn't do drugs were cool with me. And then the guards really respected me for doing it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
like it just felt good because I really felt like I was helping people daily there,
Yeah.
just with conversation.
Yeah, man, it's really cool having life experience. You never think that some paths, some people that are on these terrible, terrible paths in life, and shooting themselves in the foot with what they're doing and everything, are completely redeemed when they get to this stage of recovery where they're like, where you said, if I don't come out of this thing with at least something to show about it, boom, I don't know what that little thing is, you know. And at
Right.
the time, a lot of people don't, but they just know. They just have this feeling, and it's life changing. And it sounds like you did that same thing, and you ran with it there in prison, man. That's amazing. It's uh, I haven't been to prison. I've been to jail, and I've seen some of the libraries. And besides for every version of the Bible, I couldn't get my hands on a lot of material. And it wasn't until after I was out of jail that peer recovery coaching came into my life. But you were gonna say something there?
No, I'm agreeing with you about reading material is very inaccessible, and I want to help that.
Yeah. Oh,
I want to get more programs into the jails and prisons for people because it's seriously lacking, not only in education but in drug rehabilitation.
yeah.
The little bit that the prison system does, there could be so much more done, and there's so much that needs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah, the Department of Corrections, they have a good, and I think it's in Kinross prison system. They have one called Time for Change.
Mm.
I don't know if you've heard of that one, but that's a pretty good one. I've actually had people who have come out of prison, and they're like, "Have you ever heard of that program?" And I was like, "No." And when I looked into it, it's a DOC specific program, and you can't even get your hands on the literature. I talked to the authors of it, and they're just like, "If you don't work with the Department of Corrections, you're not getting on this." So the internet's a wonderful thing. You could find everything that you want to do, and if you're, if you've got enough gusto about yourself, you can work it out, man. That's the cool thing I love about um, having this happen to me and to everybody else that I talk to at this point in time. It's like it's such a wonderful thing. I didn't know a damn thing about peer recovery coaches. Did you?
No, before I was in prison, I'd never heard of them.
Right.
I'd heard of sponsors,
Yeah.
but that was about it.
Yeah. And any other therapist that I talked to had absolutely zero life experience, and if they did, they were just like, they were reading me verbatim out of a book, and I was just like punching holes in everything, dude. I couldn't relate, you know.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned a couple things that it also kind of goes along with our little thing here. So, how has your experience shaped the way that you view addiction and healing today?
After being sober for many years, even though I grew up my whole well into my adulthood thinking, oh, I had the perfect childhood. I wasn't around substances. I had upper middle class family. My father worked hard. My mother stayed home. Like my life is perfect. Why am I like this? I was traumatized in other ways. My parents were very cold. There was no love in the family.
Right.
And even though they always said it wasn't because I was adopted, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Like they don't say they love me because I'm adopted. And I guess I stuffed that down over the years. So then I had these abandonment issues. First, my biological parents abandoned me. Then my grandmother abandoned me at CPS. And then now they abandoned me. They rescinded my adoption when I was 13.
Yeah.
So that really threw me off the rails as far as not having security.
Yeah.
And continued with men as I got older.
Now,
Um,
was
huh?
was that defined for you as it was going along, or was this something that you discovered like later on?
This was until I was in prison that I realized I had these deep abandonment issues.
Okay.
And that's what led me to want to be a perfectionist and a workaholic and, my appearance and all that.
Yeah.
Eating disorder all manifested later into drugs.
Yeah. That's wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, it was pointed out to me too through a therapist, like exactly what the problem was. I remember it. It was just like, boom, wow, no kidding, dude. Wow, that's so fixable.
It was like the
Like,
fog just lifted one
yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's what my problem is? Okay. All
Right.
right, let's start working on this.
And I think that that can drive a person like yourself to want to help other people come to that realization quicker. You know what I mean? And because you have
Yes.
the experience of transforming through that, you can also, I think, have the patience that, like a lot of people in therapy and a lot of people in the counseling services, they don't have that patience. They're just like, they'll turn it into, you're just denying it all, you're in denial, or you're just, blah 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 blah, don't lie. There's tough love,
Mhm.
but then there's just like, you're not listening. And
Yeah.
so a person like yourself to have that kind of transformative experience is going to be such an asset, I think, to other people that are in recovery. And that's to be applauded. And there's not really a lot of peer recovery coaches that I've met that don't feel exactly the same way as what you just described. So
Right.
we're gonna move on to like understanding SUD on that little questionnaire that I gave you, and it's the first topic there says, "What do you wish more people understood about substance use disorders?"
Actually, that was like the question I didn't really have an answer for.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a tough one too
Um,
because there's so much to unpack there. It's like, how can you pinpoint
yeah.
just one thing? And not only that is they all shake hands, you know.
Yep.
It,
Yeah, I was reading through the list. I was like, I got all these questions except for that one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and when I was reading over it, I was just like, if anything, the answer, like, a plausible answer to that one is that it's just not one thing. It's just not one cookie cutter thing,
Right.
and that's
Um, I guess one way to explain the question would be is I work with people within my organization who have never done drugs, who have never been in the lifestyle. They have their professional degrees,
hmm
that they prescribe medicines or they are licensed therapists and stuff like that. And even though they say they understand, like I share clients with some of them, and the client comes to my office and they're like, oh, she has no idea what I'm talking about.
right, right.
And um, I think even with as much education as some people have, they still have a very narrow-minded idea of what an addict is.
Yeah, yeah, they do, and they have a very narrow-minded idea of what the solution is too.
The
They're
recovery,
just
yes.
like, okay, well, you're showing all these signs, so that means, let's see, on page 47, the result is do 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 do. Okay, go ahead and try to explain somebody how to ride a bike, and then show them. You know,
Yeah.
that's like a good comparison is that people who I often say people in academia that don't share life experience. Not that that's bad because we need those people. That we need that higher education, but then you need to be able to translate it into the friggin' 7,000 different languages that addiction speaks to.
Right.
So, so how do you think that's a good lead in right there? How do you think that stigma and misinformation affect people seeking recovery? So, like, what I'm meaning when I'm saying there is just what I'm saying. Like, when I say misinformation affecting people, it's just like, sometimes when you're an addict and people's pointing the finger at you, you don't understand those words and terms. So, you know, um, like, do you think that's a big hindrance in people who want to seek the recovery?
Well, I mean, as far as stigma and misinformation with, recovery, Suboxone's a big one. A
Okay.
lot of people have so much misinformation and have such a idea of what Suboxone is that they spout that. I see it every single day online, on TV, of people like, oh, it's just another drug. When I was in prison, the inmates that didn't get it look down on the inmates who did because they didn't look at it as the person trying to be in recovery. It was the person trying to get high. And I would
Mm-hmm.
explain to them, you have to abuse it and to get high. And
Mm-hmm.
when we're taking it properly, it's not like that. And I think that affects a lot of people when they want to get off opiates. Like they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to be on another drug that my parents are going to hate, or,
Sure.
my spouse is going to hate. And I really wish we could get better information out there about harm reduction and Suboxone programs, Brixadi, Sublocade, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I,
if
I
people know these are actual remedies. Well, not remedies, treatments.
to tell you the God's honest truth, I had no idea what methadone was or anything. Like, I didn't know how it worked or what its purpose was. Was it a drug? Was it not a drug? What was it?
Mhm.
And uh, yeah, it's yeah. I think you're right there. Like, especially about Suboxone and methadone and everything. And I even have I have heard of some clients that will say, "Listen, I know that you're just the drug dealer for the state of Michigan, and do whatever you got to do and everything." So, it sounds like some people who are on it are just as misinformed as some people who look at it from the outside, and
Right.
and that's where we come in. A big thing is like, okay, well, this is part of the whole treatment, part of the whole,
The whole pie is how
uh,
I explain it, is the
yeah,
misinformation with people take it. They think, oh, I'm going to take this pill or this shot and boom, I'm going to be fixed. No,
like
there's
that,
therapy that
yeah.
ties into it, self
Mm-hmm.
work that ties into it, journaling, working, with your support system. It's a piece of the puzzle,
Sure.
not the magic cure.
Sure, and I think where peer recovery coaches fit in is being able to look at all that stuff coming at you at one way and figuring out a way to go, oh shit, okay, well here's how we could do all this stuff. I've talked to you like 15, 20 times and I kind of know you, and you know, uh, this is how it's going to be. Let's talk about stigma and misinformation on both sides of the ladder there, both as a patient and both from people who have no idea what the hell a methadone clinic is about or that part of a medicated assisted treatment program is about, you know. Um, and then you said trauma. So that leads me to the third part about understanding substance use disorders is what role does trauma play in addiction and recovery?
Not every, this is a, like, I have all these stupid little phrases that I tell people when I'm trying to explain things. Not everybody that experiences trauma becomes an addict, but every addict has experienced trauma.
Sure enough.
So at the root, even if you don't know it yet, of most addictions and of any kind, whether it be drugs, gambling, sex, anything, there's a root sense there, and it's probably traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that in recovery is huge. I feel like I was kind of going through the motions the first year and a half, two almost 2 whole years of just, okay, this is the right thing to do. Go to my meetings, do this, even though I was within the prison system. So I was more than happy to get out of my cell to
Yeah.
go to group or anything.
Sure.
But then yeah, like I said, one day I was talking with the old lady therapist and it just clicked. And I'm like, Oh my God. And then everything I did made sense after that. Like, this is why we inventory. This is why we do this.
Hmm.
This is why we do that.
Hmm.
And it just made more sense. And I feel like it made it easier for me to explain to other people the steps or,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I always got a lot of kickback, like, I don't want to go over all this old, you guys think that, I'm doing drugs because I had, I had a perfect life, growing up and everything, and trauma is a real funny one too. It's like, because even if you have like this big arch of trauma, usually at the very center and in the middle of it is our attention span, or how much time we address it,
Yeah.
and so like the big problems we spend real little time on and stuff like that, and then the small problems, underneath that, we usually address those ones big and boisterously and everything,
Yeah.
and where we're not paying attention to the big stuff, drugs kind of fill in, or at least it did for me. And then
Mhm.
the smaller traumas that we're making the big deal out of it, I think we're compensating because we don't want to deal with it, so I think it's like a balance that you got to find, you know. Yeah, I hated going back and, saying things that maybe I didn't even know I meant or anything, like, oh, your parents and this and that. Well, it all led up to something, you know.
Mhm.
So I had to address it, and I agree with you 100%, is that, you got to address it, and then it's definitely, you got to pay attention to it, and knowing how the 12 steps work and being able to address that with people, letting them know what a fourth step is, and telling them how to be comfortable with any of the steps or any of these programs is paramount. Is paramount. That kind of ties in with the whole misinformation thing. Like, from bottom up, it's unless explored, it's just not understood. You know,
Mhm.
and thank God for peer recovery coaches. I'm a little biased, but thank
Yeah.
God for us. So, really interesting, hearing all about what you've gone through and what you're going through. Um, so we're gonna go down to number three, recovery tools and support. So, the first question is, what recovery tools or strategies have been most helpful for you?
Definitely see, I hit year number 4 about a month after I got out of prison. Or year number 4, I'm sorry, not month.
Hmm.
So that first big chunk of early sobriety was in prison, and I kind of dove deep into anything. I did Red Road,
Hmm.
I did AA, I did NA. Well, AA and NA we only got once a week,
Okay.
and it was a very watered down version,
Hmm.
because it was run by people who never did it in the world mostly. I mean, here and there you'd get people and they'd be like, hey, that's not how a meeting's run, and they'd show us something and we'd improve.
Yeah.
um Dharma recovery was introduced to me while I was in prison, and I became a Buddhist while in prison.
Okay.
So I dove really deep into that, because the Buddhists have a pretty, like, no bullshit kind of view on drugs and sobriety.
Kind of stoic. It's
Yeah.
very stoic. Yeah.
But yeah, I explored a lot of different avenues along with therapy
Hmm.
and group therapy as well.
Hmm.
Um, I kind of, like I said, I mentioned earlier, I kind of took every group or class I could get into. Celebrate recovery, smart recovery. I had recovery Bibles that were had study tracks in them. I just kind of did a little bit of everything
Yeah.
until until I kind of figured out what I liked the most. Journaling was a huge thing for me.
Okay. Yeah, I like
Um,
I like that. I just I just that last conference we were at, the lady went into journaling and everything, and I had not really noticed how much I used journaling until I heard her, like, input on it.
mm.
Sitting there was just like a big slap in the ego. I was like, holy moly, man. Matt, you've been using that. You didn't know anything about it. Maybe you should get into it a little bit more.
I
And
know I got so excited to hear her talk.
right, right, yeah. And then she had the cute little, like, you could buy her journals, and it was all set up there, and you're like, oh yeah, let's go. Yeah. It's like, no more 10,000 sheets of paper, but I'd probably turn that thing into 10,000 sheets of paper anyways.
You know what? I have a stack of, the black and white marble journals.
Yeah.
That's what you get your hands on in prison, and I have
Hmm. Hmm.
stacks of them that I saved.
Yeah, that cost you a fortune coming out of commissary with that thing, man. Yeah, I tell
Actually,
you.
no.
Really?
Being a recovery coach, I had all the access to notebooks and pens that I wanted, so it was my little side hustle.
Yep, yep. There you go, man. There you go. See, it's just you just
I was
reaping.
selling gel pens for noodle. That was one of the benefits there.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Holy moly. Yeah, you're keeping shop, eh? That's cool.
Oh yeah.
That's cool. That's kind of cool. But you know, the benefits outweigh any kind of opinion anybody can have about that. You know, it's like people who say most of the bullshit about that have never spent a day in jail, let alone in prison. And
Right.
you know, I think just trading a notebook and a gel pen for a pack of ramen noodles is one of the biggest benefits that might have happened to you while you were in there. You know.
I know, people be hiding around the corner to do their little, whatever, breaking the rules thing.
Yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
hiding around the corner to trade a
Yeah,
notebook.
you're like left, right, man. Oh shit, they're shaking us down. Get
They'd
rid
be
of
like,
you.
"What you doing out here, Germain?" And I'd be like, "Mind your own business."
Unless you got that spicy hot, I don't want to talk to you.
Right.
That's funny. That's funny. So, yeah. How important is peer support in the recovery process?
Huge, because you can have all the family and therapists and support system that don't know about it, that care about you and want to support you and do everything they can for you. And they're doing everything they can for you, and everything they're doing is great, but they still don't have that understanding.
Hmm.
So, peer recovery in any setting, whether it's the MDOC or out in the world, it's a lot of my clients will say, like, all right, you've done it. I know you've done it. So, and I tell them, I'm like, I don't have to report to anyone. I'm your coach. I don't have to talk to anybody unless you say you're going to hurt yourself.
Right.
And they're always like, okay, cool. And then, they open up.
Right.
And that's what I want because, you know, it's, yeah, it's hard to talk to someone who's never been through it.
Sure. Sure it is. And the thing is that I always say I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. Sure as hell not gonna bail you out of jail, but I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude that was sitting exactly where the fuck you were sitting, wearing what you were wearing, and I found a way out. And if you
Yep.
got any questions, let's figure it out. Let's figure
Yep.
that out. And that ties back into the misinformation and everything. We're good. A very unique way, a very unique language, and being able to define things for people.
Hmm.
I could see you probably did a lot of that. It's so hard just to be able to talk about your 4 years, 5 years in prison, and try to encapsulate what you did, the daily thought process, how you kept the motivation going in yourself, how you felt the motivation draining in yourself, all of that. It's very hard for us to be able to cover any of that in any time smaller than 5 years itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people say, you got to do it for yourself. You got to get sober for yourself. I don't care what your reason is in the beginning.
Hmm.
My reason was for my kids. I had two babies that were taken away and adopted out. And I had a grown daughter who is now pregnant and had her baby days before I got to prison. I
Yeah.
didn't get to meet my granddaughter till I got home.
Wow.
And she didn't talk to me my first 3 years in prison.
Okay.
And I was like, I just got to keep working at it. I got to keep working hard. And my best friend kept my daughter in the loop of what I was doing.
Yeah.
And after 3 years, she finally wrote me. And it was like, oh my God, all this work finally paid off. And
Wow.
then it was like a reboost. Cause you know how, like, after a couple of years of sobriety, you get kind of lax about it
Sure.
and like maybe not as working as hard.
Yeah.
I was almost to that point. So then it was like a re energized feeling
Yeah, yeah, those
to
motivations they
finally have
go
my
away.
daughter in my life again.
When our motivation first of all changes completely when it goes from street life to recovery life, and then after you've recovered for a while and the joys and everything are there, boy, that other lifestyle, it's in the back of your head as a good reminder. But really, what we did, how we climbed out of that is it goes away. So we lose a little bit of motivation in recovery. I'm only 3 years recovered. Yeah, in and out for 37 years, but 3 years recovered, and I'm forgetting things that I got down on my knees every day for at the very beginning. You know,
Yep.
and my prayers have changed. My intentions hopefully will not change for the rest of my career as a person in recovery, because my intentions always, with a clear mind, they come back to me, and that's just do no harm, like you were saying. Don't harm anybody else. Do no harm, man. Hugs, not drugs. Recovery inspires recovery. All the cliches. So what advice would you give someone just starting in their recovery journey?
Baby steps. I have so many people that come into my work as clients, and we start a recovery plan. And we usually start with one goal, sometimes two, if it's like two small things. But like I talk to people who don't have stable housing, don't have utilities, don't have food, don't have a car. And I'd be like, all right, what do we want our first goal to be? And they were like, I want to work on my music career. Okay,
Okay. Yep.
cool. It's great to have dreams. Or they would be like, I want to buy a house. Okay, well, we need to get you a job.
Right.
So,
Right.
it's little bite-sized things. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Right.
So, and like people, they're so lofty with their goals, like that first early sobriety. Once they make it past that first couple of months of feeling like shit, then they're like, yeah, this is what I can do. And they're still so fragile
Yeah. You know,
and
and
not secure yet.
the biting eating an elephant one bite at a time, man. That's having the goals, and then, man, you hate to bust that bubble, don't you? It's for your company because you don't have a company yet.
Exactly.
So, oh well, fuck you, man. I'm gonna, I'm good at it. Okay, well, let's get you the training then. Let's get you certed up, dude. You want to be in construction? You want to have insurance for employees and everything like that? Let's get you certed up. First step,
Yep.
work your ass off for the next year, and then go to school while you're doing that. And if you don't like it, change goals. But like you said, lofty at the beginning, and let's peer recovery coaches, man.
Well, and I got to
'Cause-
bring them down to earth because you know what? Unless you have a stable, safe place to stay, enough food in the cupboard, and your lights and phone on, it's hard to even concentrate and give a shit about anything else.
the tri- the
If your basics
trifecta.
aren't covered, yeah,
Yeah,
if your basics aren't covered, I can't even think about my dreams
yeah, that's
because I'm
awesome.
starving.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's man, I tell people all the time, it's like, yeah, I can't give it to you, but for some odd reason, I don't know how it happened, but it's happening to me. Those things are it's being fulfilled. Melissa,
Mhm.
Melissa, I couldn't tell you. Like, I've always been able to keep a job. I've always been able to lose a job too, but I can't tell you how um like I was able to keep these things that I've kept, and to keep going on. And the problems, my attention, what I focused my attention on was definitely guided by people like yourself, and the therapists that have come into my life. So, treatments and symptoms. What has your experience been like with treatment programs or healthcare systems?
Before the, I would say 95% of my treatment programs and were within the prison healthcare system.
Hmm.
So, real shitty, real shoddy.
Right.
um, they, they some prisons do have some really good programs, but there's only one women's prison in the state of Michigan,
Okay.
and because it's a level 1 through 4, they're limited on what could be there. So the
Okay.
women are very disadvantaged. I do know that Kinross and there's a few other men's prisons that have wonderful programs
Yeah.
that are really helping people, but I really feel like it's not a concern for the women at Huron Valley. Um, Before that, I had only done outpatient therapy, like drug counseling, as part of a MAP program.
Hmm.
So I didn't really have much experience with treatment, really. Because,
Okay.
like I said, I never really tried to quit doing drugs before I got arrested and went to prison.
All right. And for the sake of people who don't have a lot of experience with jails or prison or anything like that, once you go into jail, what happens to your health care? Let's say you're on Medicaid or Medicare and everything like that. What happens to that?
Well, technically, if you are within the MDOC, you are covered under the very basics of Medicaid. But while you're in prison, they also charge you a copay. So when you get paid $20 a month and now you need to go to a doctor and it's $5 for every visit,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be really picky about what visits you want to go on. And when it takes at least 3 visits to get into a MAP program,
Mm-hmm.
that's $15. That's 3 months I got to save up to go to go
Yeah,
to the doctor to get approved for a MAP program in
right.
prison.
It's a lot of dice rolling and a lot of time too, you know.
Yeah, and the jails in Michigan have come a long way. Almost, I do believe there's only 7 jails in the state of Michigan that don't have a MAP program,
Okay.
of some sort, whether it be methadone, Suboxone, the shot, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but back in the day, when I went to jail, you used to detox on the floor.
Yeah,
And
man.
if you had a shower in your cell, you were lucky because at least you could lay in there for a
Right.
while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
God damn,
so
that's so scary. It's absolutely terrifying to look back on, you know, and oh my God. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's a lot of people don't realize that some, you know, I'm not even too clear on it either. It's just that the jails and the prisons, they have like their own version of Medicare, don't they?
yeah, it's like prison Medicaid, but
Yeah.
if you look if not many people go to the law library and read the policies, but it's actually Medicaid. You should be covered. There's no reason why you should be charging the inmates $5 per visit
Mm-hmm.
or having some random person in Lansing approving your seizure medication.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we're getting off on a total.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's politics and everything, and it's semantics. But
I'm
those
very passionate about prison reform.
and those are things that we can advocate for too, you know, and we need to reach out and we need to talk to other people that are like-minded like us that maybe only have the other half of the solution that we're presenting, you know. We have good questions, and I think everyone out there has great questions too, but maybe they just seek that extra push too. That's why I bring it up, and not to get political or anything like that, you know, because whatever. But we need to address those things. We need to advocate for those lapses in the lapses in the system, especially when it comes to places like that. You'd be surprised at how many people don't know that like months beforehand you can apply for Medicaid, so that like your reentry into society is going to go a little bit better, because a lot of people, they're just like, you know, boom, dumped, and then where
Well,
do
now
I
it's
go, you know?
I don't know how long this has been going on, but I know that I'm on parole currently. Your first year home, you are automatically given Medicaid,
Nice.
and you start out with food stamps until you obviously start working and whatever, so that ups or lowers your food stamps. But you do get Medicaid that whole first year,
Yeah.
or 2 years if you're on 2 years of parole, whatever.
Yeah.
And that does help because I've had to get my dental and my vision. I was still on a MAP program when I came home,
Yeah.
so I had to get all that taken care of.
So when you're in prison, you're pretty much like I said, I've never been to prison, but when I was in jail, I was making promises that my ass couldn't keep, you know. And the minute I got out, I'd be ready, you know, doing coke off a toilet seat, you know. And so like, were you prepared for that when you know you're like, okay, I'm gonna be coming out, man? You know, you were already a couple years sober, but I mean, I've heard of that before. You know, out of sight, out of mind. You don't have drugs, or you know, you don't have drugs in prison. You know, and you've got the where.
That's the biggest lie
I
ever.
know, right? I just was kind of like, that's why I air quoted it. But you know, it's not as much pressure, you know, and not as much. At least you got a hot in a cot, you know, or. But when you
It's a
get
big thing with drugs in prison. Drugs are so prevalent in the prison.
okay,
And I'm not gonna lie, my first 6 months in prison, I fucked around a little bit,
yeah,
but it's so inflatedly priced
yeah,
that I never wanted to get in debt to anybody and owe anybody.
right,
So like I
right.
always kept that common. In the 2, 3 times I did it, I felt so terrible and shitty about myself.
Oh,
I went into a huge depression. And it
wow.
was given to me all 3 times. Like
Yeah.
they were like, here, thanks for whatever. And I'd sit there and look at it for hours, and then I'd be like, fuck it, let's do it.
Right.
And then I'd be like, why did I do that?
Right, right, and you know,
and
and it's a bigger thing that people realize. You know, they figure, okay, you get busted with
it's
drugs. What do they do
everywhere.
with people? Shit, even diversion of a vitamin C tablet in there will get you a month in solitary. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So like, people don't understand that's the price outside of just, you know, the illicit drug use that people
Yeah.
are facing in these systems and everything. Is
I
how do
mean,
you?
just in the women's prison alone, you can find meth. illegal Suboxone because there's people that are in a MAP program and then there's people who illegally get Suboxone.
Right.
And then there was a spike in fentanyl when I left there.
Jesus
There were
Christ,
several
man.
ODs in the 2 years leading up to my release.
Yeah.
Drugs are not something that during COVID they got worse when there was no visitors, like because that's what they used to blame it on was the
Right.
visitors.
Yeah. Dropping it. Yeah. Muling it in, or
Yeah,
whatever.
well, that clearly wasn't the case once COVID hit.
It's diversion. It's diversion. But
Version.
yeah. So now listen, man. Like, how did you handle getting out? Like, did you have a good support system set up, or was it, were disabled jackasses knocking on your door, or what?
Actually, I did pretty good preparing. I cut everyone off right before I went to prison.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of did a big fuck you to everybody.
Yeah. 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 Right on.
Um,
Yeah.
and then there were so many people from my hometown actually in prison with me
Mm-hmm.
that like they seen me and then they would come home and tell people like, "Yo, Jermaine's like a totally different person now." And so like I never really for anybody from my old life really hit me up. But I don't have a big support system as far as family and stuff like that. I have a grown daughter and a granddaughter that are very supportive,
Yeah.
but like I told you my adopted family rescinded my adoption. So
Yeah.
like I don't have much family or anything like that. But I have my coworkers who I'm very close with. We go to meetings together and stuff like that, and
Yeah. You know,
that helps a lot.
and the people, what a lot of people don't realize too is like the hate, the most hate that I ever got from when I told people I needed to, get you out of my life was when I was still on the attitude game with them, when I was playing ego games with them and stuff like that, and still on that same juvenile level with them. But, when I went up to them, I'm like, dude, I'm out. I'm out. I climbed out. I'm out. And they were like, go, brother. If I never see you another day in my life, then good on you. You know what I mean? So a lot of people that even if they are still doing bad, they will understand. You know,
Yeah,
but if you're still playing monkey in the middle with these fuckers and like not, walking your walk or walking your
right.
talk, then they're gonna call you out on your bullshit. You ain't no better. You're just not doing drugs right now. So why don't you
Yeah.
shut the fuck up and snort this, or something, like that. That's one scenario,
Okay.
But that's
And
another thing. Go
I'm
ahead.
so happy as so many people, because I went to prison, obviously, not for being a user. I was much bigger than that. But so many people I used to sell to and use with
Hmm.
got sober while I was gone, whether they got sober in prison as
Wow.
well, because a lot of the people I dealt with went to prison within the few years I did.
Yeah.
And I come home and like my best friends had been sober for like 3 years, and several other friends had gotten sober and been sober for years. And it was
Hmm.
just like, wow, I can still be friends with some of the people from my old life because now we're all sober together.
Sure enough, yeah, yeah, and it's almost like, hey, can you remember when we were stupid, but
We do. We talk like that too. Like
yeah.
my best friend's husband, he would be like, "Remember that one night?" I'd be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
dude, Casey, shut up."
yeah, yeah. You're making me really feel like, yeah, yeah. I get those too. Like I go, whoa, yeah,
Yeah.
like. But okay, let's move on. Professional and advocacy work. What led you to become involved in advocacy and peer recovery work? I think we kind of like covered that one, but
Yep.
yep. Um,
Yeah, pretty much self-motivation.
okay. What are some challenges you faced working in the SUD field, both in prison and out of prison, if you wouldn't mind?
Not too many inside a prison. It was a pretty respected position. Like, even if people weren't down with becoming a group, they were still cool with you. Outside of prison, I've had a weird realization because I'm pretty open about my prison, my MAP program,
Mm-hmm.
anything I've done because it's all led me right here today.
That's cool. All right. Having said that, so how do you balance your personal recovery with your professional role as a peer recovery coach?
Um, That's very odd because I live in a small town because so almost all of my clients I dealt with in my previous life in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
I've always had jobs that were pretty high pro, like waitressing, bartending.
Yeah.
So like everyone knows me. Everyone knows I went to prison. Everyone knows everything about me that was put in the small town paper.
Hmm.
So um it's kind of funny. Like I run into people and they'll be like, "Man, remember when we were doing this? Now look at us." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yes, now we're doing good."
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
But it is kind of funny sometimes when a client comes in and I'm doing their paperwork and I'm like, "Did I work with you?" And they're like, "Oh no, you sold me crack one time." And I'm like, "Oh,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
thanks."
Yeah. So we did work together at one point in time. Yeah. Yeah. Shift of balance. All right, that's kind of neat. And like, so the added pressure of having to deal with somebody else that's an addict and straightening out their life, does it ever like feel like it's overwhelming your own personal need? Do you ever have to like do you talk to people to get like, after hearing these stories over and over and dealing with them, is that adding to your recovery or adding to the stress of your recovery?
Most of the time, um, it doesn't really affect me, but there are like certain times like when I've been working really hard with a client and they're making so much progress, so much progress, so much progress, and then all of a sudden they won't answer my calls. They miss appointments. They're missing other appointments within the office,
Yeah,
and I freak out because I'm like, oh my God, I know what I was doing when I wasn't answering phone calls.
so
And then
disengage.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and then I find myself calling the jail. Hey, do you have so and so down there?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah. So is it,
sometimes that
it
gets overwhelming.
yeah, it is overwhelming, and do you think that because of your experience and because of where you're at right now, it's pretty easy to snap out of that? Like, it's like you can recognize that that's happening to you right now, or has anyone
Yeah,
has
because I
anyone
try
ever
to leave
said,
it at
"Hey,
the office.
okay,
Once I
cool."
leave, I try to like but like while I'm at the office, I'm like talking with coworkers. I'll be like, "Did you hear from so and so?"
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna try calling him again. I'm gonna text him again, like
Sure.
stuff
Sure.
like that. But like once I come home, I'm pretty good at shutting it off.
Yeah, it's so weird too because I meet all kinds of peer recovery coaches. Some take on like the mama bear role, and some take on like don't I'm gonna call you out on your bullshit. Other ones are just pure like 100% I'm your floaty little friend, and it's a weird balance that you have to maintain as well as
I
paying
have to be a
attention.
little bit of
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
those.
right. I like that
Because
same role. Yeah,
I did look at a client the other day and I'm like, don't fuck with me.
right, right.
I said, I know you're
Yeah,
lying.
yeah,
And then they were like, okay, you're right.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I always say something like, behind this clean cut exterior, you're, just shut up, like, like, yeah, come on, dude. Yeah,
I think that's what helps me. I think all the tattoos and the piercings and the way I dress, I
yeah,
think that helps clients,
yeah,
feel a little more comfortable because I have visible prison tattoos that
yeah,
I'm in the process of covering. And like
yeah,
people look at it, they'd be like, I know where you got that.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, all mine are homemade too, and like it's when I wear a shirt like this in amongst clientele, they're just like, what? Like, it's kind of weird, but then it's like I'm not like like, oh, he's a Billy Badass or anything. It's almost like it's comfort. Oh shit, it's like another notch went down, because you can see the tension in their shoulders when they first come to
Yeah.
you, and then but they're relaxed after a while, and that's kind of
Yeah.
cool. So moving right along, let's see what kind of time we got. We got about another 10 minutes, so we're gonna try to get these last two banged out without having to go through the 15-minute thing you do did. So
Gotcha.
growth and future visions. What does long-term recovery look like for you?
Mm, I'm currently going to college for social work
Hmm.
because I just want to be in the recovery field somewhere.
Hmm.
And I feel like that will always be a part of my recovery
Yeah.
is helping other people with their recovery and helping others any way I can, whether
Yeah.
it's connecting with resources or transitioning from back into the world from jail or prison,
Hmm.
or helping a woman not lose her children going to prison. Like as long as I'm in that umbrella somewhere, I'm
Hmm.
good.
That's absolutely incredible. I love that attitude. It's an attitude like if somebody was to throw an opportunity at you tomorrow to learn something, even if it wasn't like in your main goal, I'm sure you'd probably say yeah.
Yeah, and I do all the time.
Like hell yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Medicaid coding? Okay.
And you don't know what it's going to lead to. You don't know,
Mhm.
like that's the beauty about this too is tomorrow I could be offered a job from some I wouldn't even be expecting the call, and you're the same way. Like somebody's gonna, they're gonna recognize what you're doing and everything and see, the credentials, or maybe you'll take that one foot off the edge of the, out of your comfort zone and apply for something that you just, you never might get it. That's how I personally feel about it. So,
Right.
if you could change one thing about how society handles addiction, what would that be?
That people are so standoffish about it. If we start treating the addictions and helping people in their recovery, we're gonna have Actually, no, it starts before that. It's, I mean, God, that's such a long answer. Sorry.
Right. I kind of get it.
Um, raising our raising our kids right. Like, I feel like something went wrong there in the 80s, 90s,
Yeah.
where a lot of kids that I talk to, we all have ADD. We all were latchkey kids. We all were like very unloved. Like, there's a big theme I notice amongst drug users of a 20-year age group.
Yeah.
And I I want to change that. I want to make sure we don't pass on that generational trauma.
Sure. And you know what? There are a lot of people who are still doing drugs that are better parents than the ones that I've had. And if they just eliminated that little bit of drug use right there,
Mhm.
it'd be like, you know,
Oh,
that
now that
part of
my
the problems
daughter's
are
an
gone.
adult, she's like looking back, she's like, I know when you were on drugs, and I'm like, really? When? She's like, when you were super mom. She's
Yeah.
like, when you were doing the Girl Scouts, when the house was spotless, when you were working two jobs. She's like, that's when you were doing drugs, because speed's always been my thing. Even when
Right.
I was on opiates make me speed.
Yeah.
So, and she said, when you weren't doing drugs, we didn't get Starbucks for breakfast.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. You see, we could laugh about it. That's a good thing too.
I know the shit we think we hid from them.
So,
Like maybe they thought something was just off back then, but now when they're adults, they know.
yep. All right, we're looking at 8 minutes. I want to try to get these last ones in here.
All right.
What message do you hope listeners take away from your story today?
That it is possible that no matter what the childhood trauma is, no matter what the sexual trauma is, the trauma in relationships, it is possible to move on away from that. And it all is focusing on yourself. It's all about being super selfish in sobriety, recovery, everything. Because you can't be worth a shit to anyone unless you're really working on yourself. And that is something I never really realized until I was in prison and really working on myself, and then realizing I was a better mother, a better partner, a better friend.
Nice. Very well said. Is there a resource, book, or organization that you would recommend to the listening audience?
Um, Resources and books. Anything by Melody Beatty is great. Um, she does a lot of stuff about codependency, which is often a big factor in couples who use drugs.
Hmm.
Um, I remember reading her book and highlighting everything, going, "That's me."
Yeah.
Um, oh shoot, I should have made a list of books because there are so many great books and resources.
Okay. Well, you
Um,
know what? Make a list, and then what I'll do is during the intro and the outro that I do before and after editing, I'll put a list in the
okay,
description.
cool.
Yep. Yep. I'll
Perfect.
say that Mellissa suggested these books in the description. So,
Oh, perfect. Cool.
and how can people connect with you personally or support the work that you do?
I'm on Facebook. Anybody can send me a friend request. I am very open to listen to people's recovery stories and prison journeys, because I believe it helps me relate to people. I help feel like it's great for them to relate to people. It's just nice to know someone's there sometimes. And I'm always posting stuff about recovery and stuff like that. Other than that, I'm pretty old, so I'm only on Facebook.
Shut up, I'm old. Yeah. So listen, I really enjoyed talking with you today, and just as selfish question to you, would you ever find yourself on this podcast again?
Yeah, absolutely. This was
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, it is kind of fun, and there's a ton of things that we can get into, and I really value your opinion because it seems like you're grounded in many facets where I'm not, and that's it's cool. I like reaching out to people, and I think that you do too. And I appreciate your insights on things and the experience and problem solving that you bring to this industry. Definitely,
Yeah,
I definitely will be asking you to do this again. And as long as you don't mind, I'd be more than willing to spend another 2 hours talking to you.
not a problem. That would be great.
All right, cool. So,
Right.
and man, it was really great getting to know you past what I thought I knew about you just by meeting you the couple times.
Sorry if I'm a rambler.
No, you're good. You're good. You know, and I have a tendency to want to jump in and step over people, and I'm glad that I like killed that in a little bit too. You know? So
I know I have really bad ADD, so I'm always like, I get so excited. I don't mean to interrupt people.
yeah, yeah, I feel you. But I think that we're gonna have a few more things to talk about. Like I'll bring up some subjects and I'll like throw it out there. I'm gonna be having the very first guy that I ever helped as a peer recovery coach on. He's got a fantastic story. Uh, and we didn't talk for the first whole year except for text messages, you
Uh-huh.
know. And then when we finally met, it's just like we were brothers, you know. And well, so there you have it, the very first guest on Pixel Therapy. I think it went quite well. That was the extraordinary, extraordinarily kind Mellissa Germain. Just a lovely person inside and out, and had such good insights to this thing that we call substance use disorders. Well, you know how I like to end these things, and it's usually on a positive note. And I think the most positive note that I could take away from all of this is exactly what my guest Mellissa Germain had to say about finding a way out of substance use disorders or any addiction, for that matter, and is that it can be done. It can be done, and there are people out here that have lived this experience uh, just as much as you have. So reach out to them, and when you're on the other side, be kind to one another and do no harm.